It's fucking annoying. That's the second time this happened this week. Well, I start recording, and then out of nowhere, the phone starts looking for a network. I don't know why. What's up? Well, I took a different route today. That was the point. I was recording a different route. Well, that just kind of took me out of my flow. I was like in a zone on what I was doing, what I was talking about, and then it all stopped. So annoying. What are you talking about? Well, I was talking about my day. I mean, granted, it was only like 10 minutes in, but we took a different route today because I wanted to see if anything different would happen. And then we bumped into my mailman. Which validated the point that I was making when I said, hey, let's take a different route. But then I heard, and I was trying to think about what I wanted to talk about. And then I heard a question asking how my day was so far. And I was just kind of going over my morning routine. I was just writing for a little while, and then just needed to take a break and get outside. What are you writing about? That's what I was explaining. Well, I have a couple books that I'm working through. That I read a little bit. Then I write a bit, then I read a bit more of another book, then I write a bit more about what I just read. And then I was asked, what books are you working through? So in the morning, the first thing I do in the morning is like when I wake up, I was averaging it where I wake up around like 9, between like 8:30, 9:30 in the morning. So usually when I wake up, I have to just lie there for a couple minutes and just let everything come back to me. Like the night before, where I start to remember what I was doing right before I went to bed, what I did throughout the day prior, how that's related to what I was doing the days and weeks and months and years leading up to that. But usually once I wake up, for the past week I've had cigarettes. So I wake up remembering my situation, and then I remember that I have cigarettes. I got a little extra money for more cigarettes. Then I remember that I have Spotify Premium. And then everything gets good. That is, oh, wow, I forgot how great my life is. Oh, and I have coffee too. Amazing. So, once I wake up, it takes me a couple minutes to kind of catch up with myself and remember that I have all the things that I need. Then I get up and make my coffee. Go smoke a cigarette. Then I'll read the day's Torah portion. Spend about an hour and a half writing about that. So I follow the Chabad daily Torah study cycle, which breaks down the entire 5 books of Moses into daily and weekly portions off the lunar solar year. So based on a lunar year, the first day of the study cycle begins on the day that it ends. So the first and last day are the same, which trends to be the day following the third quarter moon of the 7th month of the Jewish year, which is the day after the Shana Rabbah, which is the last day of the Festival of Booths, also known as Sukkot. So the seventh month of the year, which opens with Rosh Hashanah, tends to fall either on the Virgo new moon or the Libra new moon. It's one of the two. Depends on the year. So this year it was on the Libra new moon. Last year was on the Virgo new moon. The year before that it was on the Libra new moon. It doesn't alternate like that, I don't think. This is only my second year using the Hebrew Jewish calendar. But there's trends and there's patterns that present themselves if you're familiar with the lunar cycles, especially if you're familiar with the zodiac, the solar lunar zodiac calendar. If you're familiar with that, then the Jewish calendar, it's the opposite. Instead of a solar lunar calendar, the Jews we use a lunar solar calendar. But they work in conjunction with each other. I have more experience with the solar lunar calendar, but because of my experience with the solar lunar calendar, it helps me with understanding the lunar solar calendar, which doesn't overtly register the solar data as much as the lunar data, but because the Jewish calendar is predicated on the Metonic cycle, which is a 19-year solar lunar cycle, so every 19 years to the day, within a range of about up to plus or minus 20 hours, the sun, moon, and the earth realign every 19 years. So over the course of that 19 years, there's 7 leap years where instead of 12 lunar months, we'll have 13 lunar months. Does the Torah study cycle accommodate for the 13 months? Yeah, it does. So if I don't like how they do it, I don't like how it's done, but this year that just ended, last year, the year 5784, that just ended on Rosh Hashanah, which was 2 new moons ago, 2.5 months ago. That was a leap year. And what ended up happening was, because there was that extra month, every lunar month is 4 weeks, right? But we're also basing this on a 7-week calendar. Hence the lunar solar aspect of it. Because a lunar week is anywhere from 6 to 9 days. It's about 6 to 9 days, so it's we're not talking like a Sunday or Saturday to Saturday 7-day week, or 8-day week rather. Look at that, smoking. But because of that extra month, we ended up doing the last week's. So each month has about 4 parshas. It's called 4 parshas. Each parsha has 7 daily portions. So the last parsha of Deuteronomy, which is when Moses is giving his blessing to the 12 tribes, there are 13 tribes, well, 12. No, there are 13. So when Moses is giving his blessings to the 13 tribes, we just repeated that last portion 4 weeks in a row. So I was just like, all right, okay, enough. But this year's not a leap year. This is just a regular 12-month year. So everything will line up. We won't have to do all the extra work, all the extra repeated portions. So being that we're only 1.5 months in, right? Because we're halfway through the 8th month. Yeah, this is where things get fucked up, right? Because Rosh Hashanah is the New Year. Rosh Hashanah is technically like the Hebrew New Year. Passover is the Jewish New Year. It's 2 different things. So the Jewish New Year on Passover, that's in the 1st month. The Hebrew Israelite New Year, Rosh Hashanah, that's on the 8th month or on the 7th month. So depending on what perspective you're looking at, the 8th month or the 7th month is also the 1st month, and the 1st month is also the 7th month. So there's 2 calendars in the one calendar. Not every Israelite is a Jew. Not every Jew, well, no, not every Israelite is a Jew. So you have the ecclesiastical calendar, which begins on Passover, the 1st month, the 1st and 7th month, but then you have the civil calendar, which begins in the month of Tishrei with Passover, with Rosh Hashanah, which is the 7th and 1st month. Well, I was just saying that's confusing. I was talking about the leap years, right? So we had a 13th month. Every 2 to 3 years, we had a 13th month. There's a pattern to it. So over the course of 19 years, the 3rd, 6th, 8th, 11th, 14th, 17th, and 19th year is a leap year, always. Because, like I was saying, every 19 years, the sun, moon, and the earth realign with each other. So they just follow the same sequence, the same pattern over and over again. That's why the lunar cycles, I suppose, that's why this lunar calendars don't have too much too much play because it requires a lot of extra thinking. It's not arbitrary like the Gregorian calendar, like the secular calendar. So, like I was saying about the leap year in the 13th month. So the 13th month, that other shit's confusing. Well, the 13th month comes before the 12th month during a leap year, which is called a pregnant year. So the idea is how it was revealed to me was, it's called a pregnant year because the 13th month kind of represents an embryo. So that 13th month is the development process of an embryo. And then the 12th month is the birth canal. And then the first month, leading up to Passover, is the crowning. So, based on where we're at right now in Torah study, this week's Parshat are the events that take place directly after Sarah dies, Abraham's wife. So in today's portion, which is really sad, by the way, that was yesterday. So each new Parshat. So let's say there's 50. I forget the exact number, but how many weeks are in a lunar year? I think like 52, 50, 48. It depends. Well, see, now it's getting a little confused. Well, how does it work on this lunar and solar cycle? Okay, so on the day, it's called Simchat Torah. That's the first and last day of the study cycle. Depending on what day it falls on, we might have to do like 6 portions, right? So this year, Simchat Torah was on a Friday. Typically, the way it works is each Parshat, each weekly portion, it begins on Sunday and ends on Saturday. It begins on Sunday and ends on Shabbat. But because it ended on a Friday, because Simchat Torah was on a Friday, because it has to be on this very specific day. It has to be on that day after the third quarter moon of the 7th month. So because it ended on a Friday, because Simchat Torah was on a Friday, we had the 2 last daily portions plus the first 5 daily portions of the new cycle. The reason for that is because everything has to stay structured. There's a structure to it. There's a system to it. And because if and when it does fall on one of those off days, we have to accommodate by doing all the extra work, which is fine. I mean, it's not a big fucking deal. The portions are only like maybe a couple paragraphs, sometimes a chapter. But today's portion, the second portion of Parshat Chaya Sarah. So each Parshat is named has a name, and the name is derived from the first words of that first portion. Don't worry if you don't follow along. I'm talking for me. So today, Abraham buried his wife, and then he tasked his chief operations manager his chief operations officer to find his son a wife, his son Isaac. But you can't find a woman from Canaan. Don't do that. That's not good. I don't want my son marrying a Canaanite. I need you to go back to the land of my father, which is Samaria, and find my son a wife from there. And the COO, he's like, well, what do I do? If I get all the way down there, I find a girl, but she ain't coming back. What? Well, if you find someone and she doesn't come back, don't worry about it. Then you did what you were supposed to do. That's it. But I don't want my son marrying one of these women, and I don't want you to take my son with you, because God gave me this land, and my son is going to stay here, which is why I'm sending you to go do the job for me. Thank you. And that's where we leave off. See, now what I like about the Chabad cycle is because we take just small clips, small pieces, it gives you some extra time to kind of really digest what's going on. And the fact that it takes a full year to make it all the way to the end, you get by the time you get to the end, you have like a pretty solid picture of what the hell just happened through those 5 books. Which is more of an instruction manual than anything else. It's an instruction manual on how to build a nation, but a divinely inspired nation. Because technically, the United Kingdom of Israel was the first theocratic monarchy, authentic theocratic monarchy. Because God was actually pulling the strings the whole time. And the reason I say that with such conviction, if you want to count that as conviction, is the fact that when I first started reading Genesis and I saw how God was interacting with the patriarchs, it made me realize that's I get it. That's why you needed me to read the book, because otherwise I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was fucking cuckoo bird all my life. But now that I'm seeing that everything you've done to me throughout my entire life is exactly what you were doing to those guys. So, all right. Oh, okay. So the way I see it, the way that my Lord God, the Lord my God explains it to me is you're just carrying on. You're just carrying on with what started back then. All right. I like that idea. I love that idea. Why? Why do I love it so much? Because that's exactly what I used to think when I was a kid. I used to have all these, like, my imagination used to go all over the place. And the voice in my head used to tell me all these stories. Not literally the stories from the Bible, because I wasn't raised on the Bible. I wasn't raised religious. But neither was Abraham, neither was Isaac, neither was any of these guys. They weren't there to build a religion. They were there to build a nation. But over time, people have made all of that into a religion. Most of which don't even follow his way. They follow their own ways. So, my duty over the past year and a half, 6 years, 44 years, has been to follow his way rather than everyone else's way. That's why when I study Torah, like I'm looking at it like, okay, so what do I got to do now? What am I doing wrong? I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm doing everything perfect. Don't worry about it. You're great. Thank you, Hashem. So that's usually the morning routine. Now, mind you, Torah is more than just what's in the books. Torah is more than just what's in the books. Torah is everywhere. If you know how to see it in the books are an instruction manual on how to recognize Torah outside of the books. You can actually, seeing Torah, seeing how God interacts with the world through Torah, then makes us more sensitive to see Him out in the world around us, but also in other books, movies, games, other people's lives. It's pretty dope. It's kind of like a different kind of divination. See signs? Yeah. Do you read the signs? Yeah. Well, I don't really read them. I just listen to them. And it's not necessarily like audible in the traditional sense of the word audible. We kind of got to break out of traditional thinking. Got to expand, like think a little more abstract. Eyes to see, ears to hear, heart to feel, mind to understand. So that's the first one. So this is actually my third time going through Torah, the whole Torah. So Torah, the books of Torah are composed within the first 5 books of Moses. Then you got the Tanakh, which is everything that comes after. Now the other one Jews, they don't like to go into the New Testament. Why? Because Jesus, other one Jews, Talmudic Jews, religious Jews, right? Their code of law. If you read the New Testament, the first 5 books of the New Testament, or the first 4 books of the New Testament, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, right? Is that it? If you read those books after reading Torah, after reading Torah and Tanakh, what you see it as a natural progression of things. The guys that Jesus was opposed to, the Pharisees and Sadducees that Jesus was opposed to, the Pharisees are the guys, while at the exact moment that Jesus is doing his thing, those other guys were laying the foundation for the Talmud, which is the code of Jewish law today. So why don't the other one Jews delve into the New Testament? Because the New Testament's about the guy who was he was defying the fathers of their religion. The guys who were writing the script for their religion, Jesus was saying, don't follow them. Don't follow them, follow me. So you're a Jew for Jesus? No, I'm not. Now, those are the Jews for Jesus. That's another sect of other one Jew. I refer to all other Jews that aren't me as other one Jews. So you have the other one Jews, the religious Talmudic Jews, and then you have the Jews for Jesus. But then you also have the fucking secular Jews, the atheist Jews, the Satanist Jews. I don't know if there's any more Hellenist Jews anymore. I don't think they exist. I think they kind of went out of style. Except for through me. I've been kind of resurrecting the Roman and Hellenist Jew soul. That's a whole other thing. But that leads into Philo and Josephus, which are some of the other books I'm working on. Through. Fucking alarms, man. I know. Yeah, so so those guys, that's why they don't fuck with Jesus. I had a discussion with a Orthodox associate of mine, and he was trying to explain it to me. We were having a discussion about Jesus, Rabbi Jesus, and he wanted He wasn't really even into acknowledging the fact that the man lived, but then he ended up giving me all these excuses about why. See, but that's the thing too. Is like Jews want everyone to take them serious, but you can't even take yourself seriously. You shit on other Jews. You shit on Jesus. If you don't shit on Jesus, if the other one Jews actually, I'm not even saying to say that he was the Messiah. You don't have to call him the Messiah, because he wasn't. He was a carrier of a very special soul. Okay? He had a very special Shekinah. And technically, if we look at the book of Ezekiel, Jesus didn't fit the genetic criteria of the Messiah, for which God had given the genetic sequence of the Messiah to Ezekiel in Ezekiel 37. And if we read that and then apply what we know to what we know about Jesus, who is only a descendant of David, then we can assert that he was not who people thought he was. But I believe I plan on reading through those 4 books again. But I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive, that he never once calls himself Christ. He never once calls himself the Mashiach. You gotta also recognize that the New Testament's written in Greek, which is why they call it Christ. But in Hebrew, it's called Mashiach. So Mashiach and Christ, it's the same word. It's just 2 different forms of the same word. So we got that book that we're working through. That's a whole big ball of what the fuck. Then we have the Communist Manifesto, which I'm having fun with. I read the Communist Manifesto back in summer 2023, but now I'm going at it portion by portion. So what I learned from the Chabad Torah cycle, I'm applying to these other books as well. So what I do is I have a group that I work in, and I have several different subcategories, several different categories of the books that I'm working on. So we have Communist Manifesto, we have Torah, we have music theory, we have Python programming, we have Dune, we have, we also have the Book of Air, which is an astrology book by an evolutionary astrologer, Stephen Forrest. We also have prior analytics by Aristotle that we're working on. And then there's the Years of Reflection, which is a bigger project, which is more about my own life, which is more a journey through my own life. I have about 6 years worth of journals, about 180 journals, well, let's say 170. About 170 journals written over the last 6 years that are all organized by the lunar and solar cycles. So in the Years of Reflection project, which begins in June of 2018, the idea is just to kind of go through a predefined path through my journals. Read a portion, write about the portion. Read another portion, read the next portion, write about it. Kind of go from there. But now that I'm thinking about it, that just gave me an idea. I like that. Well, the reading schedule on my journals is I only read the entries from the new moons, first quarter, full moons, and third quarter moons. That's 1 month. And then the new moon too, the following new moon, which closes out the month. Closes out the month and then begins a new month. But what I just had the idea of, because I started the project a couple weeks ago and then I stopped because I had to integrate everything that I had just experienced reading those, because it's tough. It's tough going back to 2018 to that old life. We're talking fucking 6 years ago. There's a lot of stuff happened since then. and where I was living at the time is not where I'm living now. I was married when I was writing. I was just freshly separated from my wife. And she and my son had moved out about a month prior to when I started writing. I haven't, and I don't know it at the time. Like, it's really tough. It's fucking tough reading that stuff because I know I'm seeing what I'm writing. I see what I'm talking about. I see what I'm journaling about. And at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know where my life was leading me. You understand? Like, I'm writing on June 3rd, 2018, I'm writing about all this shit, but I have no idea that in 3 months, I'm going to leave my house to go stay with my grandmother for what I thought was going to be about like a couple days just to get away. I didn't know that was going to turn into a 2-month fucking adventure that would end up leading me back to my mother's house, which is where I've been for the past 6 years. And then everything that's happened since here. And that's the most amazing thing about it too. Like, that's one of my favorite parts is like, I have like 170 journals, right? But I spend 90% of my time is in my room. Writing, reading, swimming through the fucking social medias, doing this. Do you have a job? This is my job. I formed an LLC. I formed a legal entity. I formed a legal LLC so that I could encapsulate everything that I do within the boundaries of that legal entity. Because I got sick and tired. My mother once, she said, this hobby of yours. Hobby? Nigga, this is my life. What are you talking about? So I think it wasn't it wasn't that summer, but it was the next year. So about a year and a half later, one lunar week after my 40th birthday, which coincided with the new moon in Leo. So one lunar week later, that was the Sagittarius first quarter moon, is when I got really high and I said, fuck it, let's just buy this fucking thing, because once I buy it, I have no choice but to start working on it. And plus then everything I've worked on up until this point is encapsulated within that entity, you know? So it's not so much for making money, it's just about for giving a home and metaphysical form to all the work that I've been doing. Whew. So, but like I said, the Years of Reflection project, that's kind of on hold, but the idea that I just had, which I like, is that in the group, I have every category that we're working through, I have it all like laid out very, very intricately, very, very meticulous. So there's lots of links that take you to other post pages, and then on those post pages are the links to the actual posts themselves. I like the way that I did it. Thank you, Hashem. So what I'm thinking now is that within the Years of Reflection project, which took me about a week to get all of the post thread, to get the post thread just exactly the way that I wanted it. It's just how God was showing it to me. And so what I'm thinking now is continue doing it the way that I was doing it, but then at the end of each month, do kind of like a month in review, where after I go through those four entries per month, then do like a 5th entry that summarizes everything. I like that idea. That's a really good idea. That's gonna take a lot of time. I love that. So when it comes to the other works that I had mentioned, I'm not reading them in the traditional sense, except for Dune. Dune's the only one that I'm actually like reading. And the reason that we're introducing Dune into the equation is because if you're familiar with Dune, and if you are or are not familiar with Islamic and Jewish prophecy, the Kwisatz Haderach, who's called the Mahdi in the book, the Mahdi is the title, is the rank of the Islamic call it Messiah. The Islamic version of the second coming. The next prophet. But at the same time, there are elements of Judaism that are mixed in as well. And if you know what you're talking about, then you know that the Mahdi and the Mashiach, the Jewish Messiah, are the same guy. The Jews and the Muslims, they may not agree on that point, but that's not my problem. This is what God tells me. And they're not conflicting. They're not conflicting philosophies, by the way. They work hand in hand together. That's why God made them the way that he did. And the point of the Mashiach and the Mahdi is to unify all the religions. That's what he does. The Mashiach, that's what I'm doing, is unifying all the religions into one cohesive whole. Because each one is predicated on the one before it. So Islam is predicated on the teachings of Jesus, of Rabbi Jesus, but the teachings of Rabbi Jesus are predicated on the teachings of Rabbi Moses. Oh, well, let me rephrase that. The teachings of the Prophet Muhammad are predicated on the teachings of the Prophet Rabbi Jesus, which are predicated on the teachings of the Prophet Rabbi Moses, which are predicated on the relationship between God and Abraham. Oy. Yeah, and there's all the other branching ones as well. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot to it. So that's why I have to come out and do this from time to time, just kind of dump it all out. Because this is like a brainstorming. This is like a brainstorm meeting for the Toxic Order LLC. Because I don't have any partners, I don't have any employees, I don't have anyone but me. It's just me that does everything. So the way God explains it to me is that as long as I'm doing it like this, as long as I do what I'm doing, like, as long as I put it all out in the open, like absolute transparency, right? Then no one can ever say, well, you didn't say nothing. Oh, no, I did. You're just gonna have to dig through my fucking YouTube channel to fucking find it all. I don't know what to tell you. But this is the way. And I just gotta warn you, there's 6 years worth of videos on there, and I don't know which ones I say what. And the titles that I give them, I mean, not only, and this is a trend that I started this year, but now every title is composed of 2 different titles. So you have a choice of what do you want to call it? Do you want to call it this or that? Or do you want to call it this? Or do you want to call it that? Do you feel me? So realistically, there's 3. There's 3 ways to observe one title. And then, I mean, that's also on you too. Like, are you going to sit through 2 hours? And if you do, you don't have to sit through 2 hours of this stuff, by the way, because usually these videos average about 2 hours, hour and 40 minutes, sometimes more. What you can do is you can alter the playback to 2 times playback, and then it's just turning it up 1 octave. It's just turning my vocals up 1 octave. So it's not gonna. I feel like I talk at a pace that is nurturing for 2 times playback. I'm not talking like this all the time because then you're not going to be able to understand a goddamn word that I'm saying because I'm talking too fast, especially if you turn it on 2 times speed because now it's just going to sound like blah, 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 right? You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm thinking back to Hitchhiker's Guide. Right in the very beginning, where I forget the guy's name, but when he wakes up and he sees the bulldozers outside of his house, and the township is ready to fucking knock his house down, he's like, "Yo, what the fuck are you guys doing? Hey, we told you we were coming. The plans have been there. Yeah, but I just found them last week. Okay, what do you want us to do about it? They've been there for the past couple months. Yeah, but I didn't know how to find them. All right. What were you talking to us for? Maybe you should have, if you had an objection, then you should have found them sooner. If you don't like what I'm doing, then stop. Then tell me. You feel? But now here's the thing. It's like, I'm assuming I'll probably get to uploading this when I get home. So you're already on like at least a bare minimum of like a 2 to 3 hour delay on me. And now I usually do one of these per day. I've been averaging one per day for the past month, about. Not for the past month, but over the past, between spring, summer, there's a shit ton on there. But over the past, and then you have all the ones I did last year and the ones I did the year before that. So it's not like I can just go back and explain what I'm talking about here because I'm not there anymore. I'm over here now. You ever see Andrew Dice Clay? I'm over here now. I was over there, but now I'm over here. If you have questions or concerns, the best thing I can tell you is you're gonna have to watch it all the way through. One after the other, because let's say you got a problem with what I'm saying in this one. Well, you got to understand that what I'm saying in this video is predicated on what I said on the one before that. The one I did yesterday. And the one I did yesterday is predicated on the one I did before that. And then, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, that really cringy one that I did all the way back on August 1st, 2018, that one is predicable of all the fucking ones that came before. That's why, like, think of it, those people that argue the validity of the Bible, that argue the validity of the events that are portrayed in Genesis. They only cherry pick certain things. You see, people only cherry pick certain things. Well, motherfucker, you gotta read. You gotta continue. You gotta continue reading through the entire fucking book. The answers that you're looking for are answered later on down the line. Because that's how God rolls. He doesn't lay it all out for you, but he doesn't lay it all out for you at once. He lays it out over a branch of time. Like, how did Moses build that big ass fucking boat? Did you know it took Moses 100 years to do that? It took him over 100 years to build that boat. Because back in those days, humanity was still living, they were gods back then. We're not talking about regular humans that we see today. Methuselah, the oldest man in the Bible, what did he live to? 975 years old? Moses was like fucking 800. I think he's the third oldest man in the Bible. Adam went to 970. Like, these aren't regular people. These aren't regular humans. All the gods that we used to talk about, that we see in the old mythologies, that's who these guys are. We're just following the path, the genetic path of one specific race. We're not all human. We don't all come from the same fucking family tree. Some people are literally, they're from monkeys. Because the Bible, tell them that on the sixth day of creation, wild beasts, before mankind was made, before God made man, I made the wild beasts. Included within that category of wild beasts were two-legged bipedal hominids, who we refer to today as Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon man, and I think there's a couple other ones where people say, where did the women come if Adam and Eve were the only humans? It never said that they're the only humans. You said that. Never once in the Bible does it say that well, I mean, technically they were, because Technically they were, because they were the only ones that ate from the fruit. That's what divided them from all the other ones. So let's go back to our science books, because if you Google science, if you Google science, you'll find out that ancient Homo sapiens were interbreeding with the wild beasts known as Cro-Magnon man, Neanderthals. Like we have shared genetics. So where did the women come from? They came from the wild beasts. That's where they came from. I don't know. I feel like I'm simplifying it. Like I'm making it very easy. Because science will back me up. Did ancient humans make babies with non-human entities? Non-human humanoid entities. Yeah, according to Google. According to archaeology, right? I was talking about this in yesterday's video. It's like even the 6 days of creation, which you ask any rabbi, and they're going to tell you that that's not a 24-hour day-night cycle. The word day, it's relative. It's a phase of creation. Now, I mean, we can say fuck you, and then just go, thank you, Philo, and just say, you know what? Yeah, over the course of those 6 days, what God was creating was the intellectual archetypes for which the physical manifest universe was predicated upon. And what we're seeing in Genesis and the creation of Genesis, what we're seeing is God's thought process. Okay, how about that? He thought of the sun after he thought of Earth. Well, in order to make Earth work, I'm gonna need a light source. But I'm gonna need a light source for the day, and I'm gonna need a light source for the night. But the moon reflects the light from the sun. If the moon reflected the sun, then we would see it as a mirror. It would reflect the sun literally right back at us. That's not what's happening. I'm not saying it's not happening that way, but you're intentionally being a cunt about it. Like you're making it difficult on purpose. Because it's not hard to explain. Look at glowing shoes, right? I have shoes at home that have Skullingtons on them. The skulls, they glow. But in order for the skulls to glow, I have to put those. They have photo collectors inside of them. I don't know how the fucking science works with glowing shoes. But if I walk outside with my shoes on during the day and then walk back into a dark room, the skulls on my shoes, they start to glow green. They're not reflecting the sunlight. They collected that light and then are now emanating it. Think of it the same exact fucking way. Some substance on the moon is absorbing the light and then it's emanating it back at us. It's not reflecting. Mirrors reflect. The moon is not a mirror. So it has its own light. We're seeing moonlight. We're not seeing sunlight. Because if we were seeing sunlight being reflected off the moon, then what are you saying? Are you reflecting light? Are you emanating light? Yeah. Yes. But photons and neutrinos and bullshit and Listen. I know you're good at repeating what somebody told you to say, but take it from a professional. You don't have to take everything so fucking literally. Think a little bit abstract outside the box, but it might improve your life. You'd be surprised. Fucking idiot. Like a fucking temper tantrum. The moon doesn't give off light. That fuck. Well, it's coming off the moon, is it not? It's reflecting off the sun. It's not doing shit. Yeah, the fucking sun orbits the Earth. How about that, jerk off? Show me the sun. Show me the sun orbiting the. Show me the Earth orbiting the sun. I dare you. Double dog fucking dare you. You show me real-time footage of that. I don't want to see no fucking graphics, no computer-generated images. I want to see the sun being orbited by the Earth. You show me that, and then we can have a conversation. Otherwise, go bash your head into a fucking corner. I'm not saying it's not impossible. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I've discovered more practical use for a geocentric model calendar than the solar calendar. I mean, you guys are the fucking calendar you use. You don't even know what the hell it was designated on. Okay, it was predicated on the Julian calendar. Okay, how's the Julian calendar work? 360 days, right? 365 days? Is that how it works? 360? Some shit like that? I don't know. Go find me some internet facts. I'm ignorant on all this stuff. Where was I going with all this? But now at the same time, like even we could argue 2 points. We can argue the point that creation is just God's thought processes on the creation of the intellectual archetypes that would create the manifest universe, or we could just say that it was actual creation. Where did it all come from? A fucking primordial soup of chaos. The timeless, formless nothing from which something arose. So yeah, you can get something out of nothing. And as far as I know, the Bible doesn't say anything about nothing. I don't know. You don't have an imagination enough to kind of put it all together, then I don't know. I can't help you. I can't make you see something that you're blind to, you know? That's like holding up 2 fingers at a blind person and then taking it personal that they can't guess that you have one up. How many fingers am I holding up? Well, technically 2.5. All right, well, how many? So that's a big one. Communist Manifesto? Yeah, that one I'm working through very slowly. In the group, what I'm doing is I'm working one chapter at a time, but one paragraph at a time. So I'll write out one paragraph, I'll type out one paragraph, and then I'll write about what comes up for me after writing out that portion. I'll just write, and then I'll come on to the next one. And it's not necessarily that I'm talking about what I just wrote, but more maybe sometimes analyzing it in relation to how things have evolved over time since Marx first wrote it. In today's portion, we're still in chapter 1. I'm taking it slow. I got like fucking 6 books I'm working through. Plus I have my own journal that I'm working on too. So this one, today we got into how the bourgeoisie had invaded into the bourgeoisie mindset was forced onto the Asian nations, China specifically. And how over time the bourgeoisie, they spread their satanic religion of capitalism throughout the world, making nations dependent on other nations and wiping the slate clean of individuality so that they can recreate the world in their own image, which they've done a really good job. They've done a really good job of it over the past centuries. especially now with Trump. Like this is like the pinnacle. This is like the pinnacle of the bourgeoisie revolution. And that now they're in control of everything. The corporate president. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's interesting to see the progression though, especially from the perspective of Marx. That's a FUD. Python programming, I just started that the other day. It's something I've always wanted to get into. It's something I had gotten into a little bit when I was in college, but I never got past the introductory classes of Intro to C++. I mean, I got through them. I got through the introduction to C++, introduction to, is it C++ or C++? I forget. Visual Basic, HTML, but just the HTML 101. I never went much further than that. But I remember I was in the bookstore about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I saw the Idiot's Guide on Python, and I was like, fuck it, no, let me flip through this. And I saw something about how Python can be used to create neural networks. And just the idea, I like the way that sounds. Like, it sounds really cool. The idea of it sounds amazing. Because when I think about, like, oh man, what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean? What can I create with something like that? And I realized, and last night, as I've been working through very slowly through this book, again, like paragraph by paragraph, and just kind of really digesting, because that's what I'm doing too with all these books. I'm typing out what I'm reading. I'm typing it out in the group chat, in the group posts, which normally I would do it in a journal with a pen and paper, but I got to conserve my paper and I got to conserve my pens. And plus I type faster than I write, so my words per minute are jacking through the roof. But I usually spend about an hour a day per book. But I have this vision. Last night we were going through like all of the benefits and all like the cool shit that you could do with Python. And it was giving me all these ideas of how technically, if I can become proficient enough in Python, then realistically I can create a neural network of AI that can perform functions for me, so that just to kind of take some shit off my plate. Instead of hiring people, create them through AI. And I don't know exactly what all that means yet. That's what I'm saying. Is like I'm still behind on the times. I don't fully understand what the capabilities are. I don't know what the limits are. And that's something I would really like to know, is like, what can't you do with Python? What can't you do with any particular programming language? Because there is going to be limitations, but then also at the same time, like one of the thoughts I have is like, what are the limitations? What are the boundaries? What can't I do? But then at the same time, well, if you can't do something, you can create something to do the thing that the thing doesn't do. All right. But now what are the capabilities of, say, Python that haven't actually been explored yet? Right? Let's presume, what is that? Is that a dog? Let's presume that say Python isn't actually being used to its fullest potential. Like what is the highest potential that Python can achieve? Like what can it do that no one has ever thought of before? Now, mind you, I'm just being guided by God. So, like, at the same time, like, just like how he gave Moses the instructions, the blueprints and the specs for the ark. That's a cool idea, a digital ark. That's a cool question. Thank you, Asheb. Does Python have the capabilities to create a digital ark of the pact that is capable of containing the divine presence in digital form? The Holy Ghost in the machine. But just like that, just like how God had given Moses the specs for the ark, the specs for the tent, the tabernacle, the Cohen priest robes, like all that stuff. And then God even said to him, he's like, listen, you don't have to do it. I have people who can do this stuff. All you have to do is just write everything down. And then I have the people for you. But we're a one-man operation now. If you ever read Path of Destruction, the Star Wars Path of Destruction, which I just got finished reading the Rule of Two, the second part, Rule of Two, just last month. But I mean, I've read that book. I've read Path of Destruction like 4 or 5 times since it's come out. So it's not my first rodeo with it. But the way that I see Darth Bane's path, his evolution, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying before about how, like, studying Torah allows us to see God in other works. So behind the Force, God is the force behind the Force. Both the light and the dark side. So because the way if we watch Star Wars, the way that the Force works there, the will of the Force, that the same thing. That's how real life works. I mean, Star Wars is Buddhist. Okay, well, Buddhism comes from the same universe as Abraham, so we're working with the same. We're working with the same one God. The same creator of the universe. So, where Bane, when he was inducted into the Brotherhood of Darkness, the Academy of the Brotherhood, the Academy on Korriban, right? When he was training to be a Sith Lord. But he was going against the grain, where everybody else was more focused on combat training and mostly combat training. That's really everyone was fucking. That's all everybody cared about, was fucking everybody over. There were so many traumas coming up for me while reading that book, because it's like, wow, people are pieces of shit. Oh my God, everyone's like a selfish piece of shit, which is true. But Bane was going against the grain by studying the works, the wisdom, and the writings of the ancient Sith, for whose work the Brotherhood of Darkness was predicated on. And eventually it dawned, Bane had a vision where he was the one who was going to wipe out all of the Sith and start over fresh. Now, in the book of Isaiah, I believe it's the book of Isaiah, or maybe it's either Isaiah, Jeremiah, or Ezekiel. I don't remember. But God paints a picture for the prophet about the tree of Judah, and how the tree of Judah has become so corrupt that it has to be chopped down. But once that tree is chopped down, leave the stump as a divine seed. And the thought process behind that is that, now mind, this, you gotta think abstract. That stump, which is acting as the seed, is going to give birth to a new sapling. And that sapling is going to grow into a new tree. And eventually one day that tree is going to become corrupt, and we're going to have to chop it down again, and then we'll start over from scratch. But that's the point. Just like with Noah, just like in the times of Noah, humanity had become so corrupted. And Noah and his sons were the only righteous people, so to speak, that we wiped the whole slate clean so that Noah and his family could repopulate the earth. And that's kind of the same idea with what God was talking about with the tree of Judah and Judaism in general. And we can relate that back to Darth Bane. So Darth Bane was basically cutting down the corrupted tree, that the tree of the Sith, cutting it down and allow it so that he could serve as that new sapling. And we all know where Darth Bane's story goes. The grand plan eventually became reality when Darth Sidious overthrew, legally, by the way, completely legally overthrew the Galactic Republic and reformed it into the first Galactic Empire. You see, and the reason the Jedi couldn't do anything about it, the reason the Jedi were blinded, aside from their own arrogance, Darth Sidious and the Sith, for which he was predicated, back to Darth Bane, they were living their own truth. They weren't lying. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were doing exactly what they were meant to do. They were simply following the path that was laid out for them by the Force itself, by God, through the Force. Why did the Jedi fall? The Jedi fell because they were corrupted. The tree of the Jedi, the corrupted tree of the Jedi needed to be chopped down. And the Sith were operating at a frequency of truth that the Jedi just couldn't comprehend because they had blinded themselves to the dark side. They refused to look into the dark side. But now we can bring that back to like Dune, right? Right? I'm all working on through Dune. And when we get to the portion of Dune where Duke Leto is confronted by Thufir about the potential of Lady Jessica being the traitor, the Duke, he refuses to even entertain the idea. Well, that's because he loved her. I know that. But that's what I'm saying. His love blinded him. Even she could see the corruption of his mind and how he was breaking down. But when he told Thufir, I'm not even going to fucking entertain this. If that's what you want to do, you watch her. But I'm just telling you right now, she's not the one. And it's okay that he was right. I'm not saying he was wrong. But he was limiting himself. He was blocking himself from seeing the fact that it's not impossible. He refused to even allow that thought to gain any sort of possibility in his mind. And so he closed himself off to it. By closing himself off to it, how do I put it? Had he simply allowed himself to entertain the idea and to overthink it, eventually God would have validated the fact that it wasn't her. God, yeah. Dune takes place in an Abrahamic universe. Did you know that? If you read the books, God is referenced many times. Not many times, but enough time. Well, not even just God, but the Israelites. Now, as a Jew, I can tell you that I know God is real. I talk to him all day, right? Hashem. For me, it's not a question. God's proved himself to me many times over. Plus, through my Torah study, I can see God in places where technically God shouldn't exist. But the very fact that Frank Herbert intentionally made that book show the potential future of humanity 20,000 years from now, that doesn't change the fact that the Creator created the same universe. But like I said, the Israelites are alluded to more than once. So when the Duke and Paul meet Kynes for the first time and they take the ornithopter, to check out the spice factory, Halleck is in the back with Paul, and he pulls out his balisette and he starts playing a little ditty, and he starts singing about our fathers who were eating manna in the desert, which is he's talking about the Israelites. So it's not impossible. I don't think it's impossible that Halleck is a Hebrew and or Jew and or Israelite. But like I was saying before about how they call Paul, the Fremen call Paul the Mahdi. The Mahdi is an Islamic term. He's a man. And then a second time, right before the night that the Duke died, the night that you fucking blow darts the Duke. The Duke received an ominous letter from a Fremen, from a mysterious Fremen, and it said, a pillar of smoke by day and a column of fire by night. Or maybe it was a column of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. I don't remember, but it's a reference to when the Israelites were wandering through the wilderness. During the day, God was a pillar of smoke who was leading them to the next location. And once they set up camp, and at night, that column of smoke would turn into a pillar of fire until the following day, or a couple days after they had spent enough time in that location, that the pillar of smoke would come back and start leading the way. If you ever saw Lost and the smoke monster, kind of like that. So what can God help me do with Python? What can you help me do with Python? All the things that you're talking about. Right, so at the core of my entity, aside from me, I have this vision of a neural network that does something. Probably keeping track of the lunar solar cycles, but also the cycles of the other planets as well, because each planet follows its own course. And I have this vision. I read the term machine learning last night, which I don't know what the fuck that means, but I have this scheme in my head, which I love the idea of, but AI that teaches other AI and learns from other AI. I don't know if that's possible, but again, that's what I'm saying is like, I don't know what the limitations are. Limitations are your imagination. All right, but is that true though? Is that true? Like my imagination is the limit to what I can do with it? I don't know. I'm not entirely against the idea of that. I like how it sounds. My imagination's pretty expansive. Then what else? We're also working on music theory. Oh God, and that book. I don't know who wrote it. Which one? I don't know. The one with the guy that gets really he takes it personal. He takes it really personal. That some people think, that some people believe, that some people claim that knowing music theory will hinder one's creativity and the music composition process. And I don't disagree with them. But this guy, he takes it to a whole nother, he's taking it personal. Which is a little bit annoying to me. because of the fact I don't feel like listening to some music teacher having a fucking temper tantrum and patting himself on the back because of his extensive knowledge of music theory. I get it, dude. Like, I get it. The reason I want to learn music theory, I've always wanted to learn music theory because I used to produce music. I spent about 10 years of my life as a musician. You were a fucking DJ. I was DJ and production. Fuck off. All I do is music all day. So, and it's something I want to get back into, production. But I want to know the rules of music. I want to know how to read music. I want to know how to like think like music. And I don't believe that knowing the rules are going to hinder me, because I look at it like Torah, right? So the laws of Torah, you can look at them literally, you can look at them allegorically, metaphorically. Like, one of my new favorite examples, I think it's in Deuteronomy 24, where God said, he lays down a law. He's like, yo, no Israelite woman will be a cult prostitute, and no Israelite man will be a cult prostitute. You can keep your whore's fee and your pay of the dog, because those things are abhorrent to the Lord. And when I think about what that means today, when I think of a cult prostitute, I think of a corporate employee. You got your corporation. Corporations are cults. I don't know if you ever worked in corporate or ever worked with corporate people, but they're cultish. They're very culty. They're cult prostitutes. A whore's fee. Keep your whore's fee. That's your hourly wage. That's your hourly and commission-based pay employees. And then the pay of the dog, that's your salaried employees. Or you could switch it around. I like the way that I have it in my mind. I like the idea that the whore's fee is the hourly / commission-based employees, and then the pay of the dogs, that's your salaried employees. Those are your cult employees. Those are your cult prostitutes. I worked for Hugo Boss for a little over a year. You want to talk about cult prostitutes? You go work at Hugo Boss for a little while. The fine art of shirt folding. That's not fair, because the skills, the shirt folding skills that I learned actually working with Hugo Boss, Uncle Hugo. The shirt folding skills I learned from Uncle Hugo, I still use them on laundry day. On laundry day, when I gotta fold my shirts, I still utilize those folding procedures. I mean, I have a lot of respect for shirt folders. I mean, I did it. I needed to see what it was like at the very bottom. Did you ever see that episode of, it came out right after The Force Awakens. There was a Saturday Night Live skit of Undercover Boss, Starkiller Base Edition. When Kylo Ren was trying to play the part of the undercover boss. Hi, I'm Matt. I mean, I used to tell everybody, I'm like, yo, I live in my own reality where I'm the CEO of Hugo Boss, so don't mind me. Hugo's Undercover Boss. The Hugo's Undercover Boss project. That was so much fun. So much fun. And it gave me some really cool ideas on how to run a business, especially how not to run a business. Definitely not who to hire. Holy shit. Nah, bro. I wouldn't hire you. I wouldn't hire you. Now you run the store just fine. You just do what you're good at. Keep doing you, boo. I'm gonna focus my time on building AI employees. So this way I don't have to deal with fucking people like you. Now there's anything wrong with you. I love you. It's just that I would never hire you. Ever. None of you. Ugh. The salt of the earth? I don't really have respect for anybody. I do. I mean, respect begets respect. I don't respect people who don't respect me. There's nothing wrong with like a blue collar job. Like I've had them. I had 5 years of tile experience with my daddy. I was his helper. I was his little helper for 5 years. You ever work fucking do tile? That sucks. I never actually laid it. Like I pick shit up, I put it down. But back then, I promised myself, like, I'm gonna figure out a way to use my mind to make a living and not do this shit. I can't do this. Like this is Then retail, fuck. Oh my god, I hate retail. I hate retail. I hate the coworkers. I hate the people I work with. I hate the people coming in the store. Oh my god. I hate corporate. Oh my god, do I hate corporate. And I know it's not the people, it's the position. The people are fine. It's the position. It's just get out of here. Get away from me. How they manipulate people and use fear tactics and intimidation, subtle intimidation. None of it's ever overt, but they take advantage of people being afraid. I just happen to be in a good position where I just didn't give a fuck because I had my legal entity, so I was protected. One cannot serve two masters. So that job, that was more of a hobby than anything else. So when I went in there, I didn't ask for the job. They asked me if I wanted the job. You know? And I ended up staying a year. I mean, cumulatively, I had about 14 or 15 months in the company. But over, 14 and a half. But what kept you there? I just wanted to see where it was going to go. I thought I had this idea that just by being a business owner, by having that mindset, by having the entrepreneurial mindset, that I would be able to climb up the corporate ladder in record speed. And for the first 10 months, I was only just a sales associate at an outlet. But then after I quit, and then 3 weeks later, the regional manager had called me back to run a store to help run a store for him, which turned into all the employees, the one other employee quitting, and then I had to run this store by myself, basically by myself. I did get help. Thank you, Cindy Lou Who. Thank you, Pilar. Thank you, Ore, and George. But the main, all of the stress and shit was coming on me. And I was just written in as a seasonal employee. I was only supposed to be there for 3 fucking weeks. You ever see you know in Genesis where Joseph gets thrown in jail? Because he's falsely accused of trying to seduce his master's wife. And then God, with God, he interprets the dreams of Pharaoh's cupbearer and the baker. But when Pharaoh comes to release the cupbearer, Joseph's like, yo, don't forget me. Don't forget me. I'm not even supposed to be here. My brothers beat the shit out of me. They threw me into a pit, sold me to slavers, and then my master's wife accused me of trying to rape her, and then they threw me in here. I'm not even supposed to be here. That's what it was like. I was supposed to be there for 3 weeks, and then the store manager quit. And it took 4 months for them to find someone to come and replace me. I ended up training her. My last month was training my replacement so that I could finally go home. Why don't you want the job? Because I want someone else to take it. I just want to get the store fixed up. I just want to get the store fixed up so I never have to come back here again. Because nobody is doing anything. So, but that was good, because what ended up happening with Uncle Hugo is Uncle Hugo ended up helping me stay funded for the next year. I only just ran out of money in March. I haven't worked for Uncle Hugo in a year and a half. And since then, I've just been doing my own thing with God. Thank you, Hashem. And he's telling me, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. I got it all covered. All right, I trust you. But that's why I have all the books, too. That's why I have all those journals written out, because I couldn't possibly explain all of this in a single session. Like, to be perfectly honest, like I couldn't explain anything about my life, because it's just so far outside the experience of probably anyone. You know who would probably relate to me? I would bet you that someone like Elon Musk would relate. Why? Why? Because that man works 105 hours a week like I do. Donald J. Trump, that's another guy that could probably relate to me. Another one that probably works fucking 100 hours a day. Because we're the type of people that we don't get the luxury of clocking out. You understand? Like, everything I'm doing, I'm not just doing it for right now, I'm doing it for the future. I've given up on money because God just made sure that I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about it. I rely on God to inspire my family to provide for me when I need it, when I really need it. That leaves me open to spend 15 to 20 hours a day writing about what I'm reading what I've written, talking. This is work. I was thinking about it last night. And I hate saying this, but I really do hate saying this. But it dawned on me, you're a content creator. Fuck off. I hate that. That's such a... I don't like the idea of being associated with a content creator. Goddamn CEO. God's CEO. Well, what do? Well, we're working on the reestablishment of the United Kingdom of Israel. That's what we've done. A one world order. A one world order that's predicated on God. Instead of bankers and capitalists. I said bankers. Corporatists. Technocrats. Instead of those people running the New World Order, God and I are working on it so that God is running the New World Order. That I'm running the New World Order for God. Just like he had anointed Moses to do. Moses was running the New World Order. King David was running the New World Order. Well, I mean, at that point it had already been established, but I mean, you get the idea. Nation building, goddammit. Well, the bylaws of the company. So right now, I should say that too, just to get it out there. The Toxic Order, LLC, it's a monopoly, by the way. Because it's impossible for me to have competition because there's only one God. Do you understand? So God is my business partner. This is the way that Jewish business works. But we're utilizing it. We're utilizing the legal entity in such a way that we're laying the foundation for the new United Kingdom of Israel. And I'm your host, Derek Mashiach Mahdi. The second coming of the Antichrist. Love that. Who was the first? Jesus. Rabbi Jesus. Rabbi Jesus was the first Antichrist. Well, he was one of them. Don't follow them, follow me. But he wasn't wrong. Like, hey, follow me, because these guys, they're not taking you down a good path, and for good reason. But I'm not leading anyone. I'm just leading myself. It had come to my attention in 2018 that one of my family members was spreading a rumor that I started a cult, and I thought about it. At first I was offended, but then I thought about it. I'm like, wait, no, that's true. That's totally true. But it's a one-man cult. You know? I don't like people, so I wouldn't invite people to play with me. It's just me and my Lord. Even my family is not involved in any of this at all. They have no idea what the hell I'm doing. They don't ever ask me any questions. I don't ask them questions. They don't ask me questions. It's just, how was golf today? Good? Good. I gotta go back to work. I don't even think the conversation goes that far. I just walk away. All right, conversation's over. I got shit I gotta do. I don't have time to just fucking jibber jabber. Speaking of, what time is it? It's 1:36. It's not one. It's 1 hour 36 minutes. What time is it? Well, like 4:30. It's probably sunset, 8th hour. Probably right on the ass end of the 7th hour. Yeah, got 20 minutes till sunset. Should we start walking home so I don't turn into like a pumpkin or anything? I mean, we could. Do you want to smoke first, or do you want to wait till we get out there? Wait. All right. All right, so then we got the music theory. Well, the music theory is cool too, because the way I'm looking at it is you can't break the rules if you don't know what the rules are. With music or with anything, right? Like, I also study Torah law. That's another thing that I'm doing, is aside from studying Torah, like the books of Torah, Jews have an obligation where we have to actually hand write our own Torah scrolls. So my Hebrew is a little bit iffy, spotty. So what I'm doing is I'm just transcribing the English version, the English translation of Torah, so that it's the same message. The idea, though, is just like with everything else. By writing it out, we're making new connections on how things work and how the laws interplay with each other, and how to apply 3,000-year-old Torah law today. Because you can't really do some of the things that are in there. Some of the things that it prescribes. Like, if my brother, for instance, in Torah it says, like, if anyone, be it your brother, the son of your mother, your son, or even the wife that you hold to your bosom, if any of them come to you all sneaking shit and try to convince you to serve and worship a God that you have not experienced, it is your obligation to take their life on the spot. Show them no pity. So like an honor killing, basically. but here's the thing: is based on New Jersey law, based on federal law. I mean, for right now at least, following Torah law to that extent, I don't know how that would fare in a court of law. I'm not saying that it wouldn't. I believe that it would take some serious work to find the loopholes in federal and state law where I would be able to use Torah law to beat the law. The Torah capital L law to beat the lowercase l law. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe that's impossible. Because let's just say in a wild scenario where that happened, I had to do that, and I actually did do it. Fuck, I told you. It's Torah law, man. I would have to build a very solid case in my favor for why it's okay that I did that, why it's justified. So now the other nice thing, like I was saying, one of the other books that we're working with is Prior Analytics by Aristotle, which focuses mainly on syllogism and syllogistic thought. Now, one of the nice things about syllogism, I believe, is that by the very fact. Now, how did we get up to prior analytics? So first, I had to work through categories. Once I finished categories, then I worked through on interpretation. And mind you, I'm working through those two books the same way that I'm working through all these other ones, where I write down sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. Which, for me, that's the only way that I can understand Aristotle. There's too much. It's too much. One sentence, you could write a book on every sentence that man writes. And it's not impossible for him to write a sentence. It's not impossible for him to write a sentence that's a fucking page long. So with syllogistic thought, right? So prior analytics is predicated on interpretation, which is predicated on categories. So the nice thing about syllogistic thought is we're not taught how to think that way. Because syllogism is reliant on both 3- and 4-dimensional thinking. So you need to know where it is that you're trying to go. You need to know where it is that you're trying to conclude. Because what syllogism does, it takes two terms and relates them to a third term. And in doing so, we conclude how a fourth proposition comes from those, right? We got the major, the minor, and the middle. And then we're relating the middle to the major and the minor, or we're relating the major and the minor to the middle, so that we can then determine the relationship between the middle, or the major and the minor, which isn't always obvious. But the tricky part is, so in theory, it's all sound. It all makes sense. So I'm just using these arbitrary variables. A belongs to B, but B may not belong to all C. B may belong to some C. So, with that argument, A belongs to all B, but B may not belong to all C. In order to conclude that, what we need to do is convert that second proposition that B may not belong to some C by converting it into its affirmative complementary. So being that B may not belong to some C, it's also true that B may belong to some C. And being that B may belong to some C, it's necessary that C belongs to some B. As such, A may belong to some C. Right? Did I say that right? I think I related A to B and then B to C. When realistically what I should have done was relate A to C, B to C, and then back that around so that A can be related to B. I think I started with the first form, a first figure syllogism, when I should have started with a third figure syllogism. So let's do it. A third figure syllogism is when the major and minor terms are related to the middle term, but we conclude by relating the major to the minor. So A is the major, B is the minor, C is the middle, right? So A belongs to all C, but B may belong to all C, right? A belongs to all C, and B may belong to all C, but we don't know. It's called a problematic proposition, an affirmative problematic proposition. Or, if you like, an affirmative problematic premise. We need to convert that second premise into a first figure syllogism so that the middle term lives in between the major and the minor. So in order to do that, because the middle is closer to the minor, we're going to flip them. So if it's possible that B belongs to all C, then it is also true that C may belong to some B, because the secondary term, the minor term, B may belong to all C, that's a universal affirmative problematic. It can be converted to a particular problematic, affirmative problematic. So whereas B may belong to all C, C is going to at least possibly belong to some B. So a good visual for that would be, think of a big circle, right? That's B. B is a big circle, and then within that big circle is a little circle. We'll call that little circle C. So all of C is encompassed by B, but there are aspects of the area of B that are not going to be encapsulated by C. So B may belong to all C, but C may belong to some B, not all B. Now, because we now know the relationship of B and C two ways, we can now determine what the relationship is between A and B. Because we only have the relationship of AC and the relationship of BC and CB. So now we can determine A and B. And because A belongs to all C, it is also true that if C belongs to some B, then it would also be so that A will possibly belong to some B, just as it would C. Because, like we said, A belongs to all C, and if C belongs to some B, then it's also true that A, which is an aspect of C, belongs to some B. That's syllogism. That's syllogistic thought. So now that's a little tricky, right? That's not black and white thinking. That's like, what the fuck? Exactly. So now we converted that third figure syllogism, we perfected it into a first figure syllogism because we took the middle term, which was sitting outside of the minor term, furthest away from the major term, and we moved it back where it belongs, back in between the major and the minor. And now that we have a more perfected syllogism, because technically those are called imperfect syllogisms. And even though we refined the third figure into a first figure, we can further refine it into a perfect syllogism. But in order to do that, we're going to have to do a little more legwork. So a perfect syllogism is a syllogism that does not require you to do any extra legwork. Just by the very fact that it exists, just by the very fact that the logic exists, it proves itself. I got cigarettes now. You know what? Fuck it. Might as well. Let's get it out of the way. Wait, yeah, but how do you use that? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out still. I have come up with two syllogistic arguments, technically. There's the Big Bang of creation theory, which merges the Big Bang theory and creation, and Moses' creation theory. But then, at the same time, there's another one I came up with. Hold up.
Thank you.
Green.
What?
2, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
We're gonna be a little bit.
The other one was a little more complicated. Not really. It's not complicated. But the other one would be, if you're familiar with the New Testament and how we have in the book of Matthew one genealogy for Jesus, and then the book of Luke, it's a slight variation of the same genealogy. So in the book of Matthew, Jesus is related back to King David through King Solomon. But in the book of Luke, Jesus is related to King David through his other son, Nathan. Which causes some conflict, because it's like, okay, well, which one's true? Well, they're both true from a certain perspective, and you have to use Torah. If you need to be fluent in Torah law to be able to make sense of it. So basically, the law goes like this: if a man dies, if a man gets married, right, and he dies without having a son. If he has a brother, it's the brother's obligation to have a child with his wife. And that child that they have then counts as the dead brother. Now we know that King Solomon had 400 wives. We don't know the names of all of them. But we can assume safely, we don't know for certain, but we can at least presume a very specific scenario where Nathan, the brother of King Solomon, died without having a child. And then based on the law, King Solomon inherited his brother's wife, had a child with her, and that child was designated as his brother's, Nathan. So where, according to Torah law, the book of Luke is correct, because if King Solomon inherited his dead brother's wife, and they had a son, that child would count as his brother's, because that's the law. But then from another perspective, that child, yeah, it's his brother's technically, legally, but genetically, that child would be Solomon's. All right, you follow me? So from that instance, we can make sense of it and go, okay, both are true at the same time. You just have to have a mind to understand, eyes to see, ears to hear, a heart to feel. Because that doesn't feel wrong. That feels. Is it a stretch? Hey, I can't say it's a stretch because that's literally the law. It's in Torah. It says very specifically that if a man is married, dies without a child, it's his brother's obligation to have a child with that woman so as to keep his brother's name alive. And going off that theory, we know Nathan because of it. We still know Nathan today. We know that King David had a son named Nathan. And he's mentioned in the book of Luke. Because he had a baby with his dead brother's wife, so as to keep his brother's name alive. Which, I mean, people can argue that there's that discrepancy there, but there we go. There's a loophole. Why doesn't it explain that? All right, well, here's another example for you. Jesus heals a blind man. Well, Jesus never healed anyone. Jesus facilitated the healing of a blind man, right? I'm pretty sure it was a blind man. It was either a blind man or a deaf man. It was one of the two. He facilitated the healing of someone. And he said to the man after he was done, he said, all right, now what I want you to do is go to the temple and give the offering that Moses told you. What's the offering that Moses told the Jews that they have to give when they're cleansed? Anyone? Anyone? Now, you wouldn't know that because you have to read Leviticus, you have to read Numbers, and you have to read Deuteronomy, where all of that's explained. If you didn't read the previous books and you don't know what the offerings are, then you're not going to know the answer to that question. So, not everything. When it comes to God, He's not going to lay everything out for you. You got to kind of put the pieces together for yourself. And my explanation for Nathan and Solomon, it's perfect. So technically, Jesus has two great grandfathers. He's got his legal grandfather, great grandfather, and then he has his genetic. So the book of Luke is following the letter of the law. The book of Matthew is following the genetics, the literal genetics. I love that explanation. And I thank Aristotle's syllogistic thinking for helping me make sense of that. In part, not entirely. See, a lot of the time we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to look at things as right and wrong, yes or no. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's not often that we allow for two conflicting things to be true at the same time. Probably because too much thinking. I can't think that much. Okay, well that's your problem. That ain't nobody else's. Alright, was it 2 hours? Oh, perfect. Just in time. Oh, stuff. Yeah, busted. Alright.